6:03 right now, and things are happening as UNC administrators say a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus has to start dispersing. And WRAL's Kelsey Coffey is live on campus this morning. There's a lot going on there behind you. Kelsey, this school just issued the announcement in the last 10 minutes.
Jeff, police have just arrived now, so they're trying to vacate the area. They've been moving tents out of the way, ripping them now as students have been refusing to leave. We've seen them protesting, chanting Free Palestine for the past 10 or 15 minutes or so. We just had a statement come in from UNC administration saying that they had to leave by 6 a.m. So at this point now, the police are here. Students are banding together, they're holding hands, they're linking arms at this point. Right now I see a police officer dragging a student, just drag them by their hair. Another student is down. One student has a helmet that just fell off. Police officer is now holding that student. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm seeing at least 10 students right now linking arms. You're watching officers right now trying to contain a student. There's at least a dozen officers in the area at this point. They're just scattered. I see multiple officers across the other way. Oh, there's a table that's gone up now. And students are still protesting here. I'm going to step out the way so I don't get hit by a table that just went flying in the air. Students are still linking arms, trying to ensure that the officers will not take them down. And if you can hear them, they're screaming, "We will not bow, we will not bend." We'll take a moment now as I'm trying to step out of the way for my own safety. So more students are banding together. I see them using tables as a way to protect themselves.
And don't you go poisoning our children.
And this is 4 officers now. They're all on top of a student. That student is laying there on the ground. I believe they're going in handcuffs. And again, this comes as UNC administrators just released a statement just before 6 a.m. saying that these students would have to leave. There's at least 2 students on the ground right now with officers. So Jeff, Renee, I'll send it back to you guys as we're continuing to monitor this.
Kelsey, if you can hear us, I know it's loud there. If you can hear us, we've been on this scene for 5 days now covering this, and I know you've been there for several as well. Just give me a sense of how quickly this ramped up, because that announcement came. We've been on the air since 4:30, and it's been very quiet there. This is all happening in the last 15 minutes. What was the announcement, and what was the reaction that sparked this fire right now? Understood there, Kelsey, getting to safety there and still providing us with these live pictures, though. But Renee, as we were saying, 4:30 we came on the air. Everybody was asleep. This was quiet. About 10 minutes before 6, we heard an announcement from the campus community there telling them that 6 a.m. got to go. And police showed up on the spot and off they went.
And Jeff, we've made sure to have a crew there at UNC campus, given what has been happening on other campuses across the country, as we've seen the unrest from these pro-Palestinian protests and these tent encampments. So far, for 5 days, there had been peaceful activity there on UNC's campus. This is the first time that we've seen police here on the scene interacting with those protesters, and even zip tying some of them, and even coming into contact with those protesters. We're trying to figure out exactly how it escalated into this, if there was some kind of, as you said, Jeff, some kind of spark that precipitated this. Just only a half hour ago, a lot of the protesters were there in their tents, sleeping. They were quiet. There was one announcement on the bullhorn that we couldn't quite make out of the protesters talking with some of the other people there in the tent village. But when police showed up, the confrontations began there.
Yeah, certainly curious to know what that announcement was from the bullhorn, whether it was from an official or whether it was relaying a message from officials about what was going to happen. And it was the group rallying here, protesting here, just alerting them that, listen, police are on their way, let's get up. Something ignited this, though. Something sparked this because it escalated quickly. There are dozens of police officers there as far as we can tell. And Renee, as you said, 5 days now. And as we watch the country explode in some of these on-campus incidents and some of the physical altercations, now blocking a police vehicle there, that's going to get you carted off. But, some of the other campuses responding with some physical violence and police interaction, we have not seen that at all. This has been one of the more peaceful. Even students saying that they're not worried about graduation coming into question, about whether or not that would be canceled or adjusted in any way. This has been one of the more peaceful campuses up until this very point.
Clearly, things really escalated here in the 6 o'clock hour as we are showing you live what's happening here from photojournalist Mark Alexic, showing you the officers pushing back some of these protesters as they surround this police vehicle. Campus police there putting their hands on some protesters, pushing them back physically, trying to keep them from getting in the way of this police vehicle. And just moments ago, we also saw them zip tying at least one protester's hands behind the back and transporting that person off campus. But this really escalated here just within the minutes as you are looking live here on our morning news, thanks to this live picture from photojournalist Mark Alexic. Oh, and the signal just froze there for a moment.
Yeah, this is just in the last 12 minutes or so that we heard an announcement, and some of these protesters just sprung into action from a very quiet tent encampment. Everybody up now with the alert that the police would be coming in at 6 and moving some of those folks out. We have seen them physically moving some out. We have seen them moving some tents out of that area, just tearing some things down. And there's some more on the way right there. I mean, this is just an upheaval of that particular area, just trying to end this encampment situation here.
It appears objects are now being overturned and thrown. Well, that is an air mattress that a police officer just threw to get out of the way there. Earlier, there was a table that was overthrown. These are not just students from UNC. We know that there are students from other campuses like Duke University joining in on this protest that as they set up these tents there starting Friday. And while the university has asked them to leave and allowed them to be there, we had not seen any forcible push or move from officers until today. You now see that they are telling that crowd to disperse.
Yeah, it's shocking. Mark Alexic, our photojournalist here, is right in the middle of everything that's happening here. You can understand getting bounced around a little bit while that signal's coming in and out. But Kelsey Coffey is on the ground there as well. And from her reporting, listening earlier about setting the scene and how these folks were just quiet and ready to go. They were on the move yesterday. They moved some of their tents. Moorhead Planetarium was a location for them. They marched, they protested, they rallied, but nothing is as physical or as confrontational as we have seen to this point so far.
Okay, and Jeff, our crews have been covering these protesters over the past few days, talking to them about what they are protesting, what they're demanding, not just a ceasefire in Gaza, but also they want the university to divest funding to stop essentially stop doing business with Israeli companies and businesses that may profit from the war in Gaza. We've reestablished communication with Kelsey Coffey, our reporter out there. Kelsey, go ahead and tell us how you've been able to distance yourself a little bit, but also keeping an eye on what's happening out there.
Right. So, Renee, at this point, we've seen police take away one student, and as that process was happening, students were trying to link arms in front of the car to ensure that they wouldn't leave, but they were able to leave. Right now, we're still seeing students linking arms. They've essentially created a barricade at this point to try to ensure that no one else is taken away. So right now, officers are screaming, "Time to go, leave now." And these students are refusing to leave, still protesting. Dozens of students are still here in the area, and this, of course, comes after UNC administration just made an announcement that students would have to vacate by 6 a.m. So at this point, it's been about 15 minutes or so since then. Students are holding signs that say "Free Palestine," also seeing signs that say "Ceasefire now." Of course, they are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and they're also asking the university to stop any type of business deals or any financial investments with any affiliation with Israel. So at this point, the environment is pretty chaotic. Several students are screaming. Many of them are masked right now. I see an umbrella going up. There's another student there that seems to be taken down by some police. They just hit the floor. Officers are trying to detain them right now. Just give me 1 second as I orient myself to find my photographer here. So right now, officers are essentially trying to build their own barricade to keep all of these students away from the tent. So most of these tents have been toppled over. A few of them are still standing. I'm going to step away a little bit from the crowd now, just so I can get a better view of everything. You can see officers now on your screen telling students to move back, but these students are still, just yelling, trying to make their voices heard. Again, this comes just after UNC administration made an announcement that they will ask students to vacate. This is now day 5 of this demonstration here on the quad. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on out here. Jeff,
and Kelsey, it's interesting the tactic that we're watching the police officers using right now, that it appears they are forming that line to try and stem the tide from the protesters. We have not seen them use any kind of tear gas, for example, or batons or anything like that. Right now, they are standing their ground and forming that line. Earlier, you said there were about a dozen officers, perhaps. I would imagine they have a reinforcement and backup, and more officers are out there on the main quad at UNC-Chapel Hill. As you're watching live, these protests escalating there at UNC.
Yeah, this whole encampment area has been torn up pretty good in a short period of time with police moving in. And then I think some of the students started hurling some of the equipment, tables, things like that they had handy there. But now I think they've kind of barricaded themselves in there a little bit with some of that stuff stacked up there, and police just on the perimeter of that, trying not to let any more get in there. But after 5 days of very peaceful protests and rallies and trying to have conversation and having other universities even join in on the campus, this has turned into one of the same scenes that we have seen across the country now, with police moving in, physically removing people. At some point, the announcement about a 6 a.m. deadline to break down that encampment came out, and that just ignited this whole group as they continue to rally and chant and cheer for their cause. And as we see police holding steady there. At some point, the university has decided that this area where this encampment was set up was not going to be the place that they were allowed to be any longer, and it's time for them to go.
And yesterday, there were about 35 tents there at the tent encampment set up on the main quad, what they call Pope Place there, and that has grown since. This is predominantly organized by the UNC Students for Justice in Palestine. And they have been very active and vocal on social media, asking people to join them in this protest. And other students from other campuses have also joined them over the weekend and into Monday and now Tuesday morning. Here we are with the protesters, very active, very vocal. We heard the cowbell there. They're holding up signs, chanting, leaving their tents, and then now this face-off with the police officers there.
And the arrest number in the dozens now that we are hearing from several sources on the ground there, and just leading folks off and out of there. We haven't seen all of them. We've seen several takedowns and zip tie situations and police leading some of the folks off, but they're in double figures now, according to some who are on the scene right there, letting us know, making statements about what is happening here. And it sparked right at 6 o'clock. Police showed up and just started rousting this whole area where this protest was taking place there.
Yeah, our crew there, Kelsey Coffey, reporting there on the ground, along with photojournalist Mark Alexic, providing you these live pictures there at UNC-Chapel Hill. We also have Sky 5 headed out there to Chapel Hill to give you an aerial view of what's happening there, so you can see just how large this protest has grown just within the hours since we've been on the air for the past 2 hours. But really, it was just moments after 6 o'clock when the police officers went out to the encampment and the confrontation began with these protesters and these protesters chanting. I'm not hearing any more sound.
No, I'm not either. Okay. And I don't know if we lost our audio feed. We still have live pictures here that we're showing you. Right. We're just not hearing all that chanting that's going on there right now. But police seem like they have secured a perimeter that they're satisfied with right now. Students on the outside of that, we're not seeing any more physical confrontation happening like we did 20 minutes ago when this all first started. But certainly holding their ground there, reason being they've declared this since 6 a.m., an encampment that needed to move off of the grounds where they were.
And estimates are tough since we only have one vantage point here, but it certainly appears that dozens of protesters are there. It seems most of them now are talking to officers, and everybody is just standing still at the moment. And so right now, those police officers standing ground, the protesters standing ground as well, facing each other, and the chants seem to have died down just a little bit here at 6:22.
Yeah. I mean, we've been on the air since 4:30. This encampment has been in place for 5 days now, but in the last 20 minutes, it really lit a fuse on some of those protesters, and police moved in swiftly, providing this live coverage here for the last 20 minutes. Dozens of arrests have taken place, and it seems to be calming down now.
Kelsey and Mark will continue to monitor that situation there on the ground at UNC-Chapel Hill. And Sky 5 will be on the way. As soon as we get live pictures, we'll bring them to you.